slide on your end? Hopefully I'm sharing
We can.
correctly. Beautiful.
So we'll get started. So I just want to introduce to everybody Sean Lawless. He is the National Account Manager for Axient. They are our backup partner. Sean is an expert in the area of backup, been in the technology space. I won't age you here, Sean, but over 10 years. And we're very pleased to welcome Sean. Thanks for coming. We look forward to hearing the insights that you share, Sean.
Yeah, no, appreciate you having us, Scott, team. So again, appreciate you guys hopping in here, listening in. Today's presentation specifically, backup is no longer enough. What every small business owner must know about protecting and preserving their company's critical data and computer systems. So as Scott said, I've been working with managed service providers. I've had the privilege of working with Scott and the Cygnus team for, probably coming up on 3 years now. But prior to that, I was, working for another vendor in the MSP space, and been going on about 10 years of doing this now. So either way, I'd like to think I at least have an understanding of, managed service providers as well as their end clients' needs, wants, desires, so on. But before I go too much further, just give you guys a quick lay of the land of who Axient is. So Axient, we have what is called our X360 platform, which is our one platform to protect everything. And really our vision here is to try and cure data loss. So Axient, we are channel exclusive, so we only part with IT and managed service providers, much like Cygnus. And, really everything that we do is designed for them to go and, protect data for you and your clients at the end of the day. So, how we go about curing data loss is really these three core solutions. So X360 Recover, which we'll be spending, a lot of time on today, which is our server and workstation backup and recovery tool. But in addition to that, we also have X360 Sync, which is more of that security-centric file sync and share offering, things like file server enablement, anywhere, anytime productivity, collaborative efforts, so on. And then, of course, X360 Cloud, which is another piece to the puzzle that we'll be chatting today. So that's going to be things like 365 Mail, SharePoint, OneDrive, Google Workspace, the drives associated with that as well. So really, we've continued to stay true to ourselves and our focus of trying to cure data loss, and really, data protection's the world we're living in today. This is what we live and breathe. And we've always focused on, being great at what we do and stayed in our swim lane when it comes to this specific service for managed service providers to offer. So I think that's a big, differentiator for us compared to some of the other platform players out there. Is, we've continued to hone in on, endpoint protection, backup, and really just, again, trying to protect everything at the end of the day. So getting right into it, obviously these aren't meant to be, scare tactics or, give you guys cause for concern by any means, but at the end of the day, this is just the world we're living in. And, I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to, it seems like you can't turn on the news without, once a week, once every 2 weeks, seeing something on the news about some type of cyber breach or some type of cybersecurity incident. I mean, we're almost a week removed from the whole CrowdStrike incident that, really turned the world upside down. So, needless to say, this is the world we're living in, unfortunately or not. And, a big component of what we're having to do is obviously protect ourselves and stay resilient. So of the poll of partners that we took in some of these statistics, 85% of managed service providers had one of their small to medium-sized businesses impacted by a ransomware event. Now, whether that be a client that they're protecting or a client come to them for IT services as a result of having some type of cybersecurity incident, that's still, a pretty staggering number. 50% of these had demands exceeding $50,000. 40% of them required actually more than 8 hours to address, and 46% said the attack actually affected their customers and created some downtime. Now, you might think, wow, these numbers are pretty staggering. I'm just a small business. Why would they be going after me? Why aren't they going after something that, might be larger scale? Well, these cyber criminals have realized that, small to medium-sized business are relatively, I guess, unprotected compared to some of those enterprise-like clients. And, while the payday for some of these, enterprise ransomware attacks has been very high, law enforcement's done a much better job of, being able to get back some of that ransom or track it or have some insight into what's going on. So, these cyber criminals have really figured out that, many smaller attacks could actually be more lucrative at the end of the day, especially when the defenses are much weaker and it's not that true enterprise grade, enterprise class type of security. So again, just something to consider. And again, just staying vigilant when it comes to your whole cybersecurity posture and how you guys are going about it. So I think some other things that are interesting when it comes to data loss, obviously beyond malicious attacks, there's a good number of these data breaches that aren't necessarily always the result of malicious attacks. And a good portion of these actually are the result of like mundane causes. So, a server outage, a poor backup strategy, poor retention policy or enforcement of that retention settings, and just, plain old human error. So, again, a portion of these are obviously things that you might not be able to control, but there's a good number of them that, by continuing to go through training exercises, having proper tools in place on both the offensive and the defensive side of security will go a long way in helping protect you guys and your business. So again, just something to consider here. And then this last one's a little bit of a gut punch here, but 70% of SMBs go out of business within a year of having a large data loss incident. So again, we talk data being that lifeline, bloodline of your business. Again, it's really just something that you got to be conscious of and, make sure you have a good strategy. And that's a big reason why, Cygnus has the trust and support of so many clients and, why they're leveraging Axient today. So we talk, things like ransomware and, all these different cyber incidents that come up. And what we've found is really across our MSPs, we did a survey across about 1,000 of them. And the top 3 reasons why cyber attacks were successful actually really stemmed from that email security vertical or vector, if you will. So 54% were the result of, spam and phishing emails. 26% of them contributed to the lack of cybersecurity training, and 27% attributed this to just poor user practices and gullibility. So again, it's something where I guess the positive takeaway is that a lot of these stem down to that human element. But at the same time, this just goes to show the value of having not only a spam filtering tool, but the actual phishing and security awareness training, and not just doing it as a one-time, but making this common practice to actually go and continue to have these take place throughout. So it's not like, that once a year, HR, hey, go and fill out this, cybersecurity or watch this video and take this test. Really, the more you can stay vigilant on this, the more common practice you have around training and certification and making sure that your team's aware of these, the better you'll be protected. Because like I said, the email security vector is certainly one that's commonplace for a lot of these criminals to attack and go through. So the other thing we consider here is just, the world we're living in today. So obviously we're a couple years removed from COVID. I know it still rears its head up every once in a while, but there's vulnerabilities. There are many locations that are not just the typical, office structure, like on the left-hand side of the screen here, where it's, more of that traditional, on-premise brick and mortar. You got your firewall, you got your internet. So, regardless of how things continue to shake out over, years to come, I think, people are going to only continue to be working remotely, whether that's by choice or, it's a power user that's out in the field or traveling or, a sales rep, whatever it may be. There's always going to be that remote workforce scenario. And really, this has helped accelerate that digital and cloud transformation. So we have, partners who will have some on-prem instances. They'll have some public cloud support with Azure or AWS. Obviously, it's driven a lot of opportunity for SaaS products like 365 and Google Workspace. And really what this data sprawl and, digital transformation has done is it's really kind of changed the whole security profile for small to medium-sized business. And, obviously we talked the value of that multi-layered security approach, but endpoint protection is more important than ever, data protection more important than ever, and really just being able to try and define where that edge sits on your network is something that many small to medium-sized business struggle with. So we talk about security and security posture and what you guys are doing today, where the opportunities are to be successful. And again, this is where I'd obviously highly suggest talking to Cygnus about their multi-layered security approach. By having these different levels of protection, you're both on the offensive and the defensive side of these cyber threats. And then, we talk about that last line of defense, Well, again, Cygnus is a strategic partner of Axion, and they have a good number of Axion appliances and direct cloud deployments out there to really help serve as that last line of defense. But this multi-layered approach, again, we're talking the human element, we're talking about that endpoint and perimeter security, application security, and then just data security as a whole. So everybody puts their own spin on it, but at its core, these are a lot of the things that you need on the offensive side, or the proactive approach to make sure that your data is secured and resilient. The other thing that we like to talk about, having these tools in place is really just one piece of the puzzle. So the technology is just one piece, but who's supporting it behind the scenes? Who are the people? Who are your managed service providers? Obviously Cygnus is highly reputable and trusted, and again a strategic partner of Axion. So the people you have confidence in what they're doing, but then also the processes that they follow. This isn't a one-off scenario. This is what they live and breathe. So really, at the end of the day, they're your trusted advisor for all things IT security, much in the way that we're their trusted advisor for all things data protection and backup. And without getting into too much detail, for anybody who's interested or wants more of a follow-up, there's another tool out there called Security Scorecard, and what they do is they actually score vendors in the MSP community, so those who partner with managed service providers, and they give them a cyber score. So if you look at Axiom compared to other vendors in the data protection and BCDR space, we've actually scored really well. And like I said, I'm happy to share out a blog post and a write-up we have with Scott, and he can certainly pass it along to you guys. But that whole technology and the people behind the scenes, and what steps you're actually following to stay secure and continue to keep best-in-class approaches going is obviously something that we do for our MSP partners as well. So we talk about data protection, backup. Sure, we understand that there's different requirements, different clients, different verticals, different budgets, different sizes, different environments, so on. But I think really, what it stems to when it comes to backup is, Axiom doesn't necessarily want to look at it as just being a backup provider. We want to look at, what we're doing to recover and keep your business up and running. So oftentimes the two measurables that, we chat with our partners about, and, Cygnus would have the same conversation with you, is recovery point objective. So again, this is the point in time before an event at which data can actually successfully be recovered. So that is, the time that's elapsed since the most recent or reliable backup. So you can determine, with them, how frequently do you actually need a backup performing? Do you want to do it every hour, every 4 hours? Is every day fine? Again, strategize with them, decide what's going to make the most sense for you guys from a recovery point objective. And then, of course, recovery time objective, or RTO, is the other thing that's popular with us. And this is really that maximum acceptable amount of time for restoring a network or an application, and again, being able to regain access to your data after an unplanned disruption. So as Scott will call it, how long do you have for this server to be down before you're calling me and threatening my life? It's another way to look at RTO. But again, these are measurables. We like to consider ourselves best in class with the recovery time and recovery point objectives we're able to provide. Again, we work with Cygnus in these scenarios, so have the conversation with them, see what's going to be most effective for you guys. And then the other thing that comes into play here is just, the impact this has is, what is your cost of downtime? And there's all sorts of ways to look at it, from a business perspective. One of the more simplified approaches I like to look at is just, let's just do it based off revenue per hour. So you're going to take your revenue by the number of days worked, and then divide that by the number of open hours that you guys work. That's going to produce a number for you. Now, being down 1 hour, 4 hours, it might be minimal. But if we start stretching that of, hey, what if you're down a day or 2 days or a week? What does that do to your bottom line? And again, it's just pretty eye-opening conversation to have with businesses, and really just trying to drive home the importance of, not necessarily even having a data protection strategy, but also having an approach to recovery and how you're going to get your business back up and running in a timely manner. So the other item we always like to reference is this NIST framework. So, cyber resilience is really just going to describe an organization's ability to carry on, critical core and business functions, and being able to protect business continuity and data security in the event of an attack, or this could be an outage, user error, or really any other serious incident that would potentially interrupt your operations, your day to day. So the goal of cyber resilience is achieved through the cybersecurity and monitoring, and obviously it's going to represent elements of business continuity and disaster recovery, hence Axient, hence Cygnus. But many organizations that have achieved the cyber resilience have actually done so by using this NIST framework or this NIST protocol, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology framework. And it's really based on 5 core functions, which is identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So I don't know if it's a kudos to our marketing team or who it is, but our product here at Axient, obviously we have the X360 platform, but our solution is called X360 Recover. So again, this is a framework. It ties a lot into that multi-layered security approach as well from a few slides before. But again, this is just kind of that best practice security framework. And again, I know Cygnus follows this, as does Axient. And again, just a good guideline, good use case for you guys to understand, what tools you have in place and what the strategy looks like going forward. So getting into the Axient product specifically, so obviously there is a lot of opportunity around automation, and compliance and cyber insurance, and cyber liability insurance is becoming more critical. Insurability requirements, what's required for that, the overlap, compliance requirements. How can you demonstrate that you're not only compliant but you're actually insurable? So a lot of that can be driven by, hey, I have this backup solution. Here's proof that I was able to perform backups. Here's my frequency backups. Hey, do you need a proof of a backup from a week ago, a month ago? Yeah, sure. Here, we'll generate that report. But another piece to the puzzle is actually, the actual testing and validation process of, hey, backing up's one thing, but what is a backup if you can't recover from it? So we talk about these checks, or these auto verify checks, if you will. And what that does with this automation piece is it really is going to help drive away that human element of this component when it comes to actually validating backups, and it's going to be more of an automated check on the Axient side. So baked into our X360 Recover solution, again, it's depending on deployment type, we'll actually run auto verify checks daily. So it's going to take your last backup from the previous day and run checks on bootability, operating system health, make sure that the application and file integrity is there, and then it's going to present you with this screenshot or this validation. So again, by having this automated, it's going to eliminate, the team from having to go in and actually manually do this, or potentially, cause more harm than good having to mess with backups and restores. So again, the automation piece is certainly something that's important. And what's pretty interesting is this is a major player when it comes to proving insurability and getting that cyber liability insurance. And it seems like, it's become more of a forefront for businesses, I guess over the past year or two. But there's definitely some gaps and miscommunication on what had and hadn't been in place in years past. So it seems to be more of a topic of conversation. And of course, the compliance and the regulatory clients, that's only continuing to grow, and the demands and what you have to do to, not only prove that you're backing up, but, what you're doing from actual DR testing, whether it be quarterly or yearly or whatever it may be. So the other thing, obviously, Axient likes to chat about beyond, the technology is actually how we store the data and some other features, that we have baked into the offering. So we talk about data protection and backup being that last line of defense. Again, it's the lifeblood of your business. How do we get that back up and running so you guys can, go back to your revenue generating activities? Well, yeah, absolutely. Backup's going to be that last line of defense, but Axient actually takes this a step further with what we refer to as air gap. An air gap, I like to explain it as it's essentially the means of how we separate data deletion requests from the overall mechanics of it. So I like to explain this as almost like a backup of your backup, or that additional insurance policy. So we don't define how long we keep data in an air gap state for a couple different reasons. Again, you can have these conversations with Cygnus. They'll probably be happy to share that a little bit more than I would, especially on a webinar. But that being said, air gap, let's say, worst case scenario, bad actor gets in, goes into your network, tries to target your appliance where the data lives, or, tries to target your vault where, the data is offsite into the Axient cloud. Well, even worst case scenario, they get in there, they remove the data, or what has been perceived to them as having had removed the data, that data is going to sit in an air gap state or a safety archive within Axion for that undefined period of time. So it's more than enough time where, in all likelihood, whoever's managing the backups is going to pick up on this, or whoever's working for that client is going to, catch, hey, something's going on here. What's up with this? Or before your other security measures pick up on it as well. And by having this data in this air gapped or this safety archive state, it actually allows you to rehydrate that data back into your vault to then go about performing recoveries again. So again, just a big differentiator for Axient, how we like to position the solution, again, making sure that we're doing right by you guys. The other piece where this comes into play is data immutability. So we've always heard the adage of 3-2-1 from a backup standpoint. So 3 copies of data on 2 different forms of media with 1 in the cloud. Well, immutable data, they refer to as 3-2-1-1. So it's that same approach, but with the cloud backup actually being immutable, meaning that it can't be destructed or changed with how it sits in its current state in the Axiom cloud. And again, there's all sorts of customization you can do with this. We talk about data being in the cloud and air gapped, but you can work with Cygnus as well on retention settings and what is required for you guys to stay protected or stay within compliance. So we touched on this a little bit in the automation piece, but again, just to really drive home the importance of, backup being one thing, but what good is a backup if you can't recover from it? So we like to think is this kind of help serving or solving that backburn that comes with, hey, are my backups actually recoverable? What does this look like? Well, this is going to take this in a proactive approach. And again, it's supported across both deployments that we have for both appliance as well as direct to cloud. The cadence at which these checks are run are a little bit different. But again, it's going to notify you should these checks not, actually perform and these snapshots aren't recoverable, to then be able to further inspect these backups to get a sense of what's going on. So again, it's that additional step. It's going to take it a step further. And because they're automated, it does remove that, human component of it as well. So technically, you guys don't have to be aware of it until something actually does go wrong. In the event that it does, of course. But again, there's different levels of reporting that we can provide on this, executive summary reports, so on. So there's always, that peace of mind of, having these reports sent out, on a monthly cadence maybe or something to just show, hey, this is what's going on behind the scenes with my network, and, here's the success of my backup, so on. So again, just continuing to have that knowledge share and that peace of mind certainly goes a long way. So getting into, more of that 365 Google Workspace SaaS level protection, and away from the server and workstation backups is, what we refer to as our X360 cloud solution. So again, these were polls and some statistics that I thought were pretty eye-opening. And again, I'm sure it's commonplace for just anybody who isn't heavily involved in, IT and data protection. But 33% of SaaS users believe that applications do not need to be backed up. They're like, oh, hey, they're in the cloud. Yep, no worries. We're good. That's where the data resides. Well, that's certainly not the case. 22% believe that SaaS provider is responsible for protecting the data, which, again, couldn't be more misleading or wrong. And then 45% do believe that they are partially responsible for protecting the data. So I guess, almost half the room sees an opportunity where, yeah, this is on us a bit. And just because it's in the cloud doesn't necessarily mean it's protected. So this goes well beyond even just, SaaS products, but we talk about that digital transformation, that data sprawl, and, making sure that you have your checks and balances in place to protect everything, and obviously protect what's important. So this is probably one of the most eye-opening slides that I share out when we talk about X360 Cloud and, hey, what's the value prop here? How do you guys, how do you differentiate? Why do we need this tool? Well, what I do is I like to point out the Microsoft Service Agreement. And again, Cygnus can share this with you, but this is just a quick snippet of it. I won't bore you with reading the whole quote here, but what's most important is what's highlighted in orange. So again, this is the Microsoft Service Agreement. We recommend that you regularly back up your content and data that you store on service or store using third-party apps and services. So again, the fact that they recommend you're using a third-party backup service within their service agreement, it's kind of the tell-all that hey, this needs to be in place. Otherwise, we're not liable for it. So just because, again, your data is in the cloud doesn't mean it's protected. Microsoft does a great job with things like application uptime. They're a platform player, but at the end of the day, uptime and data loss are two totally different conversations. And again, that just goes to show the value of having SaaS protected and having the right tools and measures in place, whether that be Mail or SharePoint or OneDrive. Making sure that you have the right measures in place. Same goes for Google Workspace. So, I come across these instances, and again, this is just part of their terms of service as well. And again, similar to Microsoft, they're not taking any liability for data loss. So, what better reason to have a third-party backup tool than the fact that the platform that you choose to use isn't taking any responsibility in the event that data goes missing, gets deleted, gets compromised, whatever it may be. So again, this is just something that, we can't drive home enough, the importance of it. Again, just because your data is in the cloud does not mean that it is protected, does not mean that it's being backed up. And then just a quick lay of the land here for services that we can protect with X360 Cloud. Again, so we're talking calendars, contacts, mail, SharePoint, OneDrive. We're talking for Google Workspace, the calendars, contacts, Gmail, the drives, shared drives, and sites. We support an array of options for protecting this. So, whether it's something you want to pick specifically for a user or, handpick a couple of users, that's certainly something that you can discuss with Cygnus. But we give you, flexibility from a deployment standpoint. And then we provide a lot of different recovery options where, you can go through a browser feature where it almost looks like you're going through your mailbox to find a specific document, or you can leverage our smart search feature to identify, maybe an email or a contact and, filter by point in time that it might have been, certain keywords. There's all sorts of ways to be able to recover from these items, along with more of that macro level of, hey, I have a summer intern, and we still need to protect their data from a compliance standpoint. But once they go back to school in September, we don't need that data being protected. Well, there's certainly ways that we can continue to preserve that. You could restore that back to, or what we refer to as a cross-user restore, back to another user within that domain. So again, all sorts of flexibility here. I'm not going to get into the technical weeds too much. But if anybody has any interest in further discussing the platform, we can certainly run through the UI and point out, some of the different recovery options. So just again, kind of recap everything that we've gone through today. We're talking really this complete data protection with BCDR and not just backup. So again, whether it's that endpoint backup, that power user, that remote employee that still has data residing on their workstation that needs to be protected. Sure, no problem with X360 Recover. For those clients who might not have as strict recovery time or recovery point objectives and still want an offsite backup, yep, by all means, that's another use case where direct to cloud can come into play. For those of you who have an appliance-based architecture, local virtualization capabilities being important, things like immutable backups, we have an appliance-based approach. And then, of course, for anybody who's more of those hybrid deployments or gone through that digital transformation with, having some systems on-prem, some in Azure, AWS, or Google, again, something that we can protect with our direct to cloud deployment option. So that covers a lot of the use cases, if not all the use cases that we see for server and workstation protection. We've continued to support other operating systems beyond Windows. So we've rolled out some support for Linux as well as Mac. And then, of course, the cloud-to-cloud backup that we had just touched on. So things like 365 and Google Workspace and some of the other services associated with this. So at the end of the day, this is, our technology stack that we're partnering with Cygnus on to really provide that comprehensive data protection, business continuity, and ransom recovery type offering. So with that being said, I'll pause there, open it up to the room for questions if anybody has anything.
John, I just want to really thank you for taking some time, sharing your expertise with us on this critical topic. We talk to a lot of business owners, and I think oftentimes there can be a disconnect between where the non-IT executive thinks the restore time is versus what they might actually have a solution in place. So it's important to kind of understand A, where the data lives, I think, and then B, kind of how long you can be without that data in terms of being able to effectively run your business, right?
Exactly. Yep. I couldn't agree with you more. I think the biggest thing is to communicate and over communicate and get an understanding of, not having the confidence with just one person within your IT department, but hey, why not, work with somebody that, this is all they do. They're not specific to just their network. They cover a range of, small to medium sized business and support all things IT services. So yeah, you're spot on. And then just, like you said, that kind of, false sense of hope sometimes where people are like, oh, well, that's not going to happen to me, or I'm not worried about that, or, oh, we have tools in place. Well, let's make sure we go through some assessments to see what your expectations are for the recovery and what is actually suited and built out to do so. So again, so much of it just comes down to communication and expectation setting. And again, that's why, can't tell anybody enough, engage with Cygnus, chat with them. They're your expertise for all things IT.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And then for anybody that is interested, we are happy to do a no-charge assessment of your particular situation. All you've got to do is email me, and I'll be happy to kind of coordinate with our engineering team to schedule the resources, to visit your site, take a look at where the data is, how you have it backed up, and present our findings along with potentially any recommendations. That's a $1,075 value. So please feel free to email me. Wanted to thank everybody for attending again. Sean, thanks so much for the presentation. Have a terrific day.
Thanks
Bye-bye
so
now.
much, guys. Appreciate it.